I'm Dan Poblocki. I'm the author of at least 20 books over the past 15 years, most of them under my own name. A lot of them sort of scary, spooky mysteries, ghostly stuff. The newest one is called Tales to Keep You Up at Night. It came out in August. And it's my first kind of collection of short stories, but these stories are interlinked and there's a framing narrative that connects them even further. So it sort of reads like a novel. Yeah, I've been doing this for like 15, 16 years and never thought that I was going to be a writer, and started writing one day and realized that I really loved it. And thankfully and luckily, I'm still able to do this. So that's basically my background.
So what a perfect guest that we're fortunate enough to have here for the Halloween episode. Because I've seen your name around with the scary book displays for years now. I, of course, became aware of you back when the Nightmarys came out. That was my first introduction. And then you've been steadily moving right along with a few other stories, but mostly the scary. But I know that you started with a degree in theater, right, from Syracuse University.
I did.
We're touring the United States playing Ichabod Crane, which that's very appropriate to this Halloween episode.
Yeah.
So how do you get how does that prepare you for life as an author traveling with a theater company? And then two, how do you get from there to author?
I mean, I think traveling with a theater company can just like prepare you for lots of things. Like doesn't necessarily need to lead to author. Like it's a very humbling experience, especially when you're doing theater for children and you're literally building the set and breaking it down every day in a new place, oftentimes school auditoriums or gyms. And I guess in a way, if I were to try and think of how it prepared me for this life that I'm living now, I mean, it was a very early sort of exposure to the educational system in this country. I was working with performing for educators and their students, and afterwards the kids would come up and ask questions, and I realized I mean, I've always sort of had a rapport with kids and like that youthful mind. Like I feel like that's sort of where I sort of sort of live in my 12-year-old memory. I think that's why I still write about that age. But the touring, the acting, I think ultimately comes down to having that in common, having the same something in common with writing, and that's just a love of storytelling from another angle. And storytelling is something that I've loved since I was a little kid. Getting together with friends and trying to come up with the scariest situation, scenario, freak each other out. I loved recounting the plots of the latest horror movie that I would see to my little cousins and get in trouble for doing that. It was always about wanting to sort of impart and share something that I thought was really exciting and cool to whoever wanted to listen. So I think that's ultimately where the acting bug came in. And really after those tours and living in New York City for a little while, that fell away. I realized I did not like auditioning. I did not like spending 8 hours at an open call and then having 30 seconds in front of casting directors and having them like, you know, dead-eyed look at you and be like, thank you, and realize that you just wasted another day. So when I moved to when I was in New York City and auditioning and doing that in the late 90s, I just realized, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. What else do I have? What else can I do? What makes me happy? And it came back to the love of storytelling. And I was like, maybe I can try writing. And I mean, I took a playwriting class in college and I loved that. So I sort of started with that, and through, you know, meeting some people in New York City and realizing like there was this whole children's literature world. And, you know, I started trying my own hand at it, and got really, really lucky. So that's, I guess that's where the connection is. That's a really long, roundabout answer.
No, I love long answers. That gets free information that I would never have been smart enough to ask. that makes my job easy. But 8 hours for 30 seconds, then you walk in and they're thinking, I don't know, we wanted somebody with bright red hair, which you don't have, or whatever it is that they had in their mind that they probably could have ruled out with a headshot before you ever walked in or wasted the day. Assuming because you majored in theater, because you were sort of, you know, I'm not talking to you, and like that's when I stopped being an accountant and decided to go be a children's book author. You always wanted to chase some sort of artistic endeavor, some sort of dream.
Oh yeah.
That must have been a hard decision to say that there's a trade-off here, because I'm assuming at some point you loved acting. Decided, oh, I'm gonna step away completely.
I was a theater nerd in high school, like, and you know, love to all of the theater nerds. You make the world go round. But you know, that was when it was fun for me, like middle school, high school, like, you know, being with my friends and like having extra time to like do some just fun stuff. And then going to college for it, you know, that changed things. There was this added pressure on top of it. And I feel like at that point, because you're being graded, which is, I have my own opinions about that in terms of art school. I don't know. I don't think it's really fair, but there's this pressure, and there was this pressure about how you're supposed to look and how you're supposed to talk and how, like, you know, some of the things that were said to me, I can't imagine flying in today's world. When I was in school, I had a great experience. I loved my teachers. I understand it was a different kind of world, but it was a world where people like me weren't necessarily, you know, going to be heading out there and finding jobs about, you know, like work, you know, acting roles about people like me. Like it was, you know, still the 90s, and Will and Grace was just starting, and like people were like, oh my gosh, you know, queer people can exist on television and be popular. Like, how can we monetize this? We haven't quite gotten to, you know, where we are now. But going back to, you know, the idea of being a creative person, wanting to be an artist, like for me, even in high school, it's like it was between like drawing and painting, and had such a love for that. And then I loved my English classes, and so it was about like trying to consume as much literature as I could and think about those things, and then, you know, the acting part, the storytelling, singing, and I was in the choir. It's like I did every single thing that I could try to do that made me feel like I was expressing myself in truthful way. And when I was looking at colleges, that was something that we were expected to do. I was looking at theater schools and I was looking at art schools, and I've always been obsessed with children's book illustration, and I thought that it would be a fun thing for me to do. I know, very, very difficult and hard to break into and sustain and all that stuff, but I was, naive. So even from a very early age, like I sort of had this love for children's literature. And in a roundabout way, came to where I am now. I don't think the weird thing is I don't think I'd be where I am right now if I didn't go through all of those paths and roadways that I took, going to theater school and having that devastating realization that I didn't love it anymore. When I was in New York City after, several years, I was looking at people who were successful and realizing like they love this so much, they're so passionate about it that they're willing to stick with it, no matter how it makes them feel about themselves, about their bodies, about what kind of feedback they're getting. They like these people are unique, hardcore, passionate people. And I realized that I didn't have that inside myself regarding performance. And in fact, like after I graduated from college, I ended up getting severe stage fright, and I started hating it. So when I had made that decision to stop auditioning, I felt really lost for a long time. And in